I have been saying this for years, I really do miss action games. I miss when they were at their peak in popularity, and we were getting so many of them. Everything from Ninja Gaiden, Devil May Cry, God of War, and many others, along with a bunch of really fun clones too. Many of those were actually really good as well, but then action games started to fade away and be less and less, with an industry focusing their attention more on the Souls-like games. While both are challenging experiences, they are very, very different styles of games, and I like many of the Souls games, especially even seeing studios like say Team Ninja go from action games to something more Souls-like, with many of their recent titles. But even so, I like the Souls genre, but I very much miss the action one. Indies have sort of come in to help fill the gap, and while some of them have been good too, I miss when the big budget space was making them as well. But now recently, I think for this year, we have a bunch of action games coming out, and then on the horizon to even look forward to. We might be entering a new golden age for them, an upcoming renaissance, so to speak. The first one I want to touch on here is with Phantom Blade. At first glance, I thought this was going to be another Souls-like or variation on the formula, and maybe it will end up being something like that, but the developers have actually come out to provide clarification that this is not in fact a Souls game, but rather an action game. It does look super fluid and smooth, and the combat looks very showy as well. Very impressive moves that just seem to flow into each other. It also looks like a rather hard game, which is no stranger to the action genre, but I did find out that there are elements in this title that seem like it might be good for someone who loves to get sucked into these games, as it's looking really good. It's going to have difficulty settings with an easy mode, so as someone who potentially wants to try this one out, knowing that I can knock it down if I need to is reassuring. Along with that, bosses have multiple phases, and if you get past one and then die, you will then respawn at the phase you were on. I do like those accessibility features, but I wonder if some of this stuff can be tweaked, depending on how hard you can make the game. The game is coming to the PS5 and PC. This title seems meaty too, with being able to replay boss fights, about 20 hours of story content, and then on top of that will be side stuff, along with a bunch of weapons to try out too. It's one of those games like if you catch it at a glance, you want to see more of it, and I'm in that camp. I am interested and I like what I've seen so far. This brings us to the 1-2 punch that came from Team Ninja. They recently not only announced they are reviving the Ninja Gaiden franchise through the 4th entry, but also they just dropped a remaster for Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. This version of Ninja Gaiden 2 is based on the 360 version of the game. And if you've played those games, then you know that the second one on the Xbox is significantly better than the PS3 version. It's not to say that Sigma 2 isn't good, it was good, and actually my first way that I played that game. But the Xbox version was significantly harder, and loaded with so much more over-the-top violence, and it was an absolute blast. Arms, legs, and heads could all be hacked off, with loads of blood going everywhere. It was the best kind of video game violence. That was a game that even on easy I found it to be pretty tough, and while it was also a satisfying experience. Ninja Gaiden 2 is a game that really challenges the player. It asks you to look at each of the fights and come across as a way to try and just survive. You are continually reacting on the fly, trying to find a flow within the chaos. The sword slashes, variety of weapons, delicious violence creates a unique experience that is one that I love revisiting. I'm not that good at it, but it's one that I love playing, and it's just one of those really awesome situations. The new graphical and performance upgrades are also a nice touch too. You don't see games like this anymore. Well, anymore until now, and I guess now we have more on the horizon. Props too need to be given to Team Ninja and Xbox how they did the announcements for this. Ninja Gaiden 4 was announced and the developer was like, hey, the game is about 70% complete, which means that the game is probably coming out later this year. Plus they were able to show off actual gameplay within the trailer, and at the same time they shadow dropped the remaster of 2, to sort of whet the appetite for fans and really get them anticipating 4. 4 looks really good, looks like they are adding a new ninja into the mix, while also having Ryu returning as well. The developers have stated that Ryu is not being replaced, and it was good for them to confirm this early on. It looks like some of the other characters are coming back too. I wonder if we're going to have any Ayane exclusive sequences in 4 as well. I really hope that the co-op mode makes a return. This has been in a few entries and was always a nice highlight, as you could enjoy the Ninja Gaiden action with a friend. 4 looks good, really good, and the developer seems to be saying all the right things. Another thing to note too is that thank God this is not a reboot or anything like that. I'm so happy this is a sequel, and they aren't just starting over. Ninja Gaiden fans like me have been very excited for something like this. So as it relates to God of War, we have a few things that are only speculation, but I would at least say that I hope some of this ends up happening. So it's rumored that God of War is going to be receiving a collection set, which will contain some of the classic games. So as I understand it, for the classic God of War, we had 4 console entries and then 2 PSP games. When looking at this landscape, if they want to include this ultimate collection, they just put all of them in there in one package. We already had them segmented out on the PS3. But if they want to do this, they could also split this again into 2 collections. You could have one having the first 3 games from the consoles, and then another one being Ascension and the PSP games in another. Personally, I think it would be best to do one big collection. We already have them separately, so if you want to bundle them together, now is the best time. So why am I excited for this? Well, these God of War games are the ones that I really enjoyed. Personally, I couldn't get into the reboot stuff. They changed too much from the gameplay to how Kratos is as a character too, and honestly, I just don't believe that's the same guy that I played in the older games as he is now in those reboots. What would have been better is if they just created a brand new property that was then a spiritual successor to God of War. But there's a lot of people who enjoy those new games, and I just prefer the older stuff, and more means to play the classics, well, I'm all for that. Especially because I never played Ascension, and I heard that's actually an underrated entry for the series. Now, another piece of information that is interesting is that a brand new of God of War is sort of targeting the location of Egypt. If it's kind of like the new ones, then I don't think I'm going to be really interested in that game, but many other players probably will. But as it pertains to the classics and potentially them coming back, come on Sony, get these games out there and make them more accessible to all players. The big question is if something like this is going to be remastered on the PC too. Sony has been moving in that direction, and to see the God of War games potentially natively on PC, that would be another positive. So while this is all just rumors right now, I still hope this ends up happening. The last game I wanted to feature in this video is one that I'm really pulling for, since I've seen it return. So Captain Blood is an Xbox 360 game that is set to be released later this year, and it was also one that was previously cancelled. I remembered seeing older footage for it, and I was like, this looks really good, taking influences from God of War and other action games. The visual style was appealing, and the idea of having a pirate-themed action game, well, that sounded good to me. But since it was cancelled, I was like, we're never gonna see this. Well, it got an announcement last year that it was being revived, and pretty much coming to all major platforms. On top of that, a demo was released, and at that point it was all actually becoming real, because now we were all able to play it. And going along with this, the demo is actually really good. Between the action and the music and the visual style, I think this is going to be one to look out for. It's an interesting throwback title at the same time, because at one point this was cancelled and then it's coming back, so it's like getting one of those older gems that we sort of missed out on but was never released, and now it's coming back now. And if this ends up being a really good game, this could also spark other revivals from other cancelled projects that maybe looked a bit interesting in the past. Personally, I wouldn't mind exploring something like that for future titles, basically taking an unfinished gem and then bringing it out now today. So yeah, Captain Blood, it's out later this year, and it's looking really good. So those are just a handful of action games that are coming our way, and ones that I'm excited about, or being rumored. At the same time, I think there are other titles that I haven't even mentioned in this video, so it's going to be fun what other people suggest that maybe I take a look at in the comments. But as of right now, I'm really excited about Ninja Gaiden coming back, say seeing Captain Blood coming too, along with new properties like with Phantom Blade. It's all looking really good, whether it's new action games, remasters, or getting an uncancelled game coming back. I really hope they all turn out to be good. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are we entering a new action game golden age? What are you personally looking forward to? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.